Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited. The Man Crisis. Learn why so many men are struggling to find their way in an increasingly gynocentric world in The Man Crisis. Get your copy of The Man Crisis in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today. 2 juveniles have been arrested and charged in connection with the shooting that took place after the Kansas City Super Bowl celebration that led to the death of 1 woman and injured 22 other people, including multiple children.
Two juveniles have been charged in connection with the mass shooting at the Super Bowl rally for the Kansas City Chiefs. Missouri court officials say the teens face gun-related and resisting arrest charges. Future hearings could determine if they'll be tried as adults, with more serious charges expected. 1 person was killed, more than 20 others injured, including children, when gunfire erupted over what police say was a personal dispute. On Thursday night, folks came together to honor the legacy and remember Lisa Lopez Galvin, a local radio personality and Chiefs fan who died in the attack, and to support the 22 other victims. Half of the victims are under 16, the youngest just 8. On Friday, officials at Children's Mercy Hospital said of the 11 patients they received, just 1 remains in the hospital. Police are still investigating what led up to the shooting and how the dispute escalated into a tragedy.
Now, in this alleged incident that took place after the Kansas City Chiefs finished celebrating their Super Bowl victory, 2 groups of teenagers who came to attend the celebration allegedly got into an argument. And as these groups of teenagers allegedly got into this argument, several allegedly pulled firearms, and as they pulled these firearms, including an AK-47 style semi-assault rifle, allegedly they began shooting at each other. And as they began shooting at each other, they wound up killing popular radio DJ Lisa Lopez Galvin, and they also wound up shooting and wounding 22 other people, including multiple children. And as this incident went on, people in the crowd began to tackle these individuals to stop the shooting. And as they tackled these individuals, they managed to detain these individuals and take them into custody. And after police began to do their investigation, they were able to rule out that this was not an act of terror or an act of extremism or even a mass shooting. No, this entire incident basically took place because 2 groups of teenagers got upset about something as related to what was going on out here, or not even related to out here, and got into this argument. And as they got into this argument, got so upset that they felt the only way to resolve things in a crowd of people that was filled with children was to take out weapons, including this AK-47 style semi-assault weapon, and start shooting into the crowd. Now, the Kansas City police are seeing this as an isolated incident, but when I take a critical examination of the alleged actions of these 2 juveniles, it definitely fits the pattern and profile for beta males that I talk about in my book, The Man Crisis, and it also fits the chapter that I talk about as related to children of the corn in my book, The Woman Crisis. And it's clear to me that these 2 individuals who participated in this shooting are definitely children of the corn, and they're children of the corn because they were basically not raised at all by their parents. And because they were not raised at all by their parents, what happened with these children is because they had no foundation for structure and order established by their parents, what happened with these children is that they basically wound up growing up like stalks, and as they grew up like wild stalks without any sort of structure or order, or being taught basic life skills such as discipline and self-control, these children of the corn basically were running wild in our society. And as they were running wild in our society, they basically were like landmines, basically waiting for a place where somebody would step on them, and they could wind up exploding in this rage and participating in this extreme act of violence. Now, these children, again, due to the dysfunctional way they were raised, thought that they needed to bring firearms to a Super Bowl victory celebration. And the main reason why they were bringing those firearms to that Super Bowl victory celebration, again, has to do with the way these children were raised, as the way they were indoctrinated into concepts such as possible thug culture or possible gun culture. And as they were brought into these cultures, these individuals thought that they needed to have these guns on them for so-called protection, but they really didn't need these guns because these guns basically were attachments that allowed them to have emotional security, and that's the main reason why they needed to have those guns with them. Now, when I heard about this incident, I thought about the rap song Self-Destruction that came out in 1988 or 1989, and a lyric from MC Lyte in that song where she said, "You ain't guarding the door, what you got a gun for?" And that's the critical question I have to ask about these individuals. You were not guarding anything at this Super Bowl celebration, so why did you need to bring a gun? And the answer is they needed to bring this gun because this gun, one, was an attachment that they used to get social currency in these streets, and two, they needed this gun because it was their emotional pacifier, because these individuals were extremely insecure. And because these individuals were extremely insecure about getting their safety needs met by their parents, they held on to this attachment and took it basically everywhere. And as they took it everywhere, they wound up taking it to this Super Bowl celebration, and that's what made this weapon part of them being as destructive as a landmine, because all it took was somebody basically saying something possibly about the Kansas City Chiefs or the San Francisco 49ers, and because these individuals did not have life skills to teach them how to just hear and not hear, and basically understand that people are entitled to their opinions, or to navigate through their emotions, where you can hear something that you don't like, but you don't act on anything that somebody says because words can't hurt you. What these individuals did, because those words wound up hurting them emotionally due to the dysfunctional way they were raised, is they started to act on their impulses. They first got upset by looking to argue with these other individuals, and as they look to argue with these other individuals, possibly over something extremely trivial as related to this event, that's where the other individual possibly wound up saying something that they didn't like, and because this person couldn't process through their feelings to understand, yeah, he said something you don't like, he wound up acting on his impulses, going to his security blanket and taking that security blanket possibly out of the waistband of his clothes and looking to deal with this argument that he basically lost by ending the argument by participating in shooting at this individual. Unfortunately, because this was a juvenile, they didn't understand that they were carrying high-powered weapons, and these high-powered weapons, when you are shooting them, they basically wind up becoming just weapons of war, because these are combat style weapons. And instead of just shooting at the individual, because I possibly believe this guy possibly wound up missing that dude, he wound up shooting into the crowd, and sadly Lisa Lopez Galvan, a mother of two, wound up losing her life, and multiple children wound up getting shot as a result of this teenager who basically didn't understand concepts like critical thinking, concepts like learning how to walk away when somebody is looking to argue with you, because of the way he was raised. Because a lot of times when it comes to these individuals, whether they be a beta male or a female, they want to get the last word, And since this guy couldn't get the last word, he possibly wound up taking out that firearm and wanted to get the last word with a bullet. Unfortunately, again, he didn't know how to control that weapon because he had no training as a man in that weapon. And as he fired that weapon, it just basically went out of control. And as it went out of control, this basically led again to this mother of two losing her life. And sadly, all of these children winding up being traumatized by being shot at an event where they just came out to see their favorite sports team and celebrate with their favorite sports team. And instead of them celebrating memories of seeing many of their favorite players like Travis Kelce and many of the other players of the Kansas City Chiefs, what they got was a memory of seeing people basically running for their lives and a memento in the form of a bullet. And that's all due to the dysfunctional way these males or possibly females were raised, because they have not given us the names of these two juveniles, but these two juveniles basically were raised in a dysfunctional fashion. And the way they were raised, again, was the way children of the corn are raised. And this incident and many other incidents where we've seen the age of these shooters get younger and younger should trouble everyone. And it should trouble everyone because if the ages of these shooters is getting younger, what's happening is that it's showing us that the man crisis is getting progressively worse and the woman crisis is getting progressively worse. And it's all due to the complete implosion and complete collapse of the American family. And the reason why we're having a complete collapse of the American family is because we are not raising children anymore. No, because of the rise of feminism, what's happened is many of these families are more focused on jobs and careers and working all day instead of providing children with the things that they're going to need to survive in this world. And many of these kids are not being taught anything. And when they're not taught anything, what's happening to these children is that they're growing up like stalks. And as they grow up like stalks, they are not really learning the life skills and survival skills that they need to be a part of this world. No, they're not learning what they need to survive in this world. And since they're not learning what they need to survive in this world, as related to skills like critical thinking and problem solving, and the ability to hear and not hear, and the ability to just let something go, these were conflict resolution skills that I had to learn back when I was in junior high school and high school, when I had to deal with individuals who would say things like I was retarded or try to make fun of me. I had to learn how to let things go because there were more important intangibles as related to my life and more important goals. And these kids are not learning about those intangibles of manhood that or womanhood that are extremely important, such as your own personal safety, your own health, and most importantly, your freedom. Because these two juveniles, this may be the last event they ever go to because they basically sacrificed their freedom for their feelings. And as they sacrificed their freedom for their feelings, they're going to go from being free individuals who are able to possibly go on to places like high school or graduate from high school to graduating to the juvenile justice system. And as they graduate to the juvenile justice system, they've basically thrown away their freedom and possibly their own reputations, because these records are going to go and follow them, especially if they are of a certain age. They may wind up getting charged as adults, and these felonies may wind up on their records. And sadly, as it winds up on their records, they may be going from the juvenile justice system, where they're going to be having to deal with the authority of the COs and dealing with a life of cheese sandwiches and mystery meat sandwiches, as they have to deal with the juvie versions of Bubba, Tiny, Roscoe, Big Dave, Melvin, and Mr. Sprinkles. And if they get in arguments with those guys, they may wind up beating them down and possibly wind up trading them for the Little Debbie snack cakes, ramen noodles, packets of Crystal Light lemonade, packets of Crystal Light tea, off-brand Oreo cookies, off-brand chocolate chip cookies, off-brand duplex cookies, off-brand vanilla wafers, off-brand ginger snaps, pretzels, packets of snack pack puddings, Kit Kat candy bars, Kool-Aid packets. I mean, these guys are going to a prison possibly for an extended period of time just on the gun charges, and possibly on more charges such as resisting arrest, and possibly for the alleged killing of this popular DJ. These guys have gone from being out here free on the streets to possibly winding up in prison for an extended period of time. If they do go to juvenile hall for these crimes, they're going to be going to that hard life in that facility. And they're going there, again, because they never really learned what they needed to survive in the world. And that's what's really troubling to me, because that's where these children of the corn wind up growing up to become even more dangerous. But these children are growing up to become children of the corn. And again, this is a part of a disturbing trend where we're seeing the ages of these shooters get younger and younger. And the reason why they're getting younger and younger is not because of the guns. It's due to the way we raise children in this country. And because children are not being parented, what's happening is these children are not being taught what they need to know in order to survive in this world. And instead of them learning how to survive in this world, they're learning dysfunctional approaches like holding on to guns like a security blanket. And the question I have to ask, because this is not a gun control issue, because a teenager who's a minor is not able to get access to these weapons legally. No, the person got this gun possibly from a ghost gun kit, or they possibly got them illegally, because that's the only way you can get an AK-47 style weapon and have that kind of weapon. But the thing that really troubles me is, how could a child gain access to this weapon? And the reason why I asked that question is because it's clear to me this child had no supervision whatsoever, or if they had supervision, that supervision was extremely dysfunctional. And that's why we have to really look at these parents these days, because it's a real serious issue with them, because they're raising these kids, and they're raising these kids from what they learned 60 years ago from feminists and many of those who said we don't need no man, we don't need no father to provide structure, and women can do it on their own. And instead of us getting the boy who was supposed to be raised by a man from a woman, what we are getting are 2 to 3 generations of boys who grow up to become dysfunctional men in crisis. And because these men don't know how to be able to just take something and let it roll off their back, what these men do is look to bicker and argue with someone. And if they can't get the last word, like a female, what they do is, because they're in their feelings, they go out here and attack another man. And as they're looking to hurt that other man, they wind up hurting other people in the crossfire. And we have to really not just look at the guns, but look at the way we're raising boys and girls to become men and women, because this is the reason why we're seeing this increase in frequency of this kind of violence. And we're seeing this increase in frequency of this violence because we refuse to acknowledge the man crisis in this country and the woman crisis in this country that is leading to many of our youngsters turning into dysfunctional males and females who won't know how to function in this world, and we're not investing in them to make sure that they are being raised properly. No, we expect the public schools to deal with this, but the public schools can't really deal with this because their job is to provide your kids with an academic education. Children need to be parented at the home, but corporate America wants to make fast money off of most of these women, and that's the reason why we don't get a real solution to this man crisis and this woman crisis in this country. It's because people are so greedy. They want what they want, but they don't want to sacrifice so that the next generation can have something better. And in order for the next generation to have something better, they need a foundation in a healthy family, because when you have healthy families, you don't wind up with kids going to a shootout with guns. No, you don't wind up with kids out here who are arguing over trivial matters to the point where they want to shoot someone. No, that's what happens when children aren't raised to know how to deal with conflict or how to walk away. And because these two juveniles didn't walk away, they are now on the road to becoming children of the corn who are on their way to becoming adults in crisis. Now, if you want to learn why so many of these kind of children wind up on this dysfunctional road and wind up participating in this kind of violence, you can pick up my books, The Man Crisis and The Woman Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find The Man Crisis and The Woman Crisis at other online booksellers like Smashwords, the iBookstore, Google Play, and Barnes & Noble. And if you'd like to see me make more videos about The Man Crisis and The Woman Crisis, you can send a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback. From the author of the critically acclaimed book, The Man Crisis, comes The Woman Crisis. Learn why so many women have become lost in their quest to have it all in The Woman Crisis. Get your copy of The Woman Crisis in paperback at Amazon.com and online booksellers today. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.